When I was younger, I used to spend a lot of time with my cousin. During that time, it was common for people to tell stories to try to spook people out, to make them paranoid. My cousin swore that his stories were real. He spoke of seeing reflections, figures that just weren't there when he would look in the mirror. He spoke of this shaded figure that would walk back and forth between rooms while he was alone because he just got home from school and his parents were at work. He spoke about footsteps that he would hear in his room at night and the noise of objects just moving that he would ultimately just dismiss as cracking noises that were caused by a lower temperature at night. No one really believed him. And granted, I didn't either. One day I spent the night at his place and I woke up early in the morning. I made myself some breakfast and I watched cartoons, He was at school and his parents were at work, so I had the house all to myself. It was a normal day, 11 o'clock came around and the housemaid came over and she joked with me and she kept me company. I was about to head upstairs to play some video games when suddenly I heard the first slam. I stopped in my tracks, petrified to the definition by the sudden noise. I eventually regained composure. I took another step and suddenly it happened again. I took 2 steps back and by now the housemaid was right behind me and we kind of just stared at the stairs. We were confused. Another. We took another step back. And again. Initially we thought that someone had broken in, but that's impossible because the house windows had bars on the outside resembling those of a prison. By now the housemaid ran outside, scared, not wanting to be part of anything, but I just stood there. I stared at the wall almost like I was expecting something to come around the corner from the stairs. Something to meet me. Eventually my cousin got home and we told him what happened, and almost like clockwork, the slamming began again. By now we pinpointed that the sounds were coming from his room, and despite our instincts begging us to run away, we moved forward and made our way to his room. The slams continued as we made it to his room, and when we finally made it to his room, with his hand hovering over the handle, the slams just stopped. We stood outside of his door for about a minute or two, just kind of, delaying the inevitable, but eventually we opened the door and what we saw was terrifying. We saw his clothes all over the floor, all over his bed, all over his desk. His closet door was pretty much broken and his drawers were open at such an irregular pattern as if they had been slammed open and shut continuously. As we stood in the middle of his room, everything was really quiet. We tried to come up with a reasonable explanation, but we were just baffled, His windows were closed, but even if wind had gotten in, it wouldn't explain how his clothes got everywhere. We felt uneasy. We felt vulnerable. As it was as if there was an apex predator in the room, and evolution had yet to give us a gift to protect ourselves with. That's how vulnerable we felt. A year or so later, we learned about the previous owner of the house. A priest who had committed suicide after having been accused of numerous unspeakable things. He'd committed suicide in the same room that my cousin slept in. What makes it worse is that no one had even found him until weeks later. He asked me if I believe in ghosts. I have to respond with, do you believe what I just told you? Because what happened was real. And I believe my cousin now. Happy Halloween.